Hey, I'm Melissa.
And I'm Jesse. And
this is the Reimagine Success Podcast.
We're a husband and wife team who want to make a difference.
Keeping up with the Joneses can be exhausting, and we can often lose sight of what we are accomplishing.
We're here to reimagine success and to celebrate the steps it takes us to get there.
Big or small, we want to showcase success stories that will inspire, motivate, and help propel you towards greatness in your own life.
So come reimagine success with us, and let's go on this journey together.
Welcome back to another edition of our Thursday podcast, Reimagine Success.
We're so excited to be back. We are post-Thanksgiving now and getting geared up for Christmas.
Yes, we hope everyone had an amazing Thanksgiving and hope your Christmas shopping is almost done.
Absolutely. And so we're really excited. We've got a fantastic guest on today.
We do. G. David Cooper. Now, I actually personally have worked with David. He is actually my illustrator for Deadly Crimson for the first issue and some of the second issue. So we're super excited to have him on board today. He actually owns his own production, which is G. David Cooper Production. And he has a couple of umbrellas that he has underneath it. David, do you want to go ahead and talk about what you have done with your production?
Well, G. David Cooper Productions is the primary LLC that my organization is founded under, and it covers a number of different things. I have a graphic design and web design company that I refer to as Starshine Design. My comic book company is The Sequential Samurai. And then I'm in the process of labeling my children's illustrations. I've over the last 3 years, I've begun illustrating children's books for authors who are writing and trying to get out there. A lot of them are independents. Some of them are actually getting published through some of the larger name publishers. But those illustration services have been offered under the headline of Starshine Design, but I'm going to separate that come January. So it'll have its own umbrella covering there.
Awesome. Well, you have done a lot of different things over your lifetime. And now, like we both have gotten to watch you grow in your art, in what you've done. So why don't you give our listeners a little overview about where you came from, how you got started in art, and how that's been for you?
Well, I could easily make fun of myself, but I'll try to be somewhat serious for you guys for your interview. I'm the son of a preacher. My dad was a pastor when I was when I was first born. He was a Marine. He went from being a Marine to being a pastor. So as you can imagine, my life was very structured and very rigid growing up. A lot of discipline, a lot of thou shalt nots. And so I think I grew up very, I don't necessarily say I was timid, but I think it definitely had an impact on me being more introverted than I really feel like I could be. There are times when when I'm very comfortable and I'm comfortable with the people that I'm with, no one would ever know that I was introvert. But whenever I'm in a new situation or a new crowd or whatever, I get very self-conscious and very withdrawn. I think that my upbringing had a lot to do with that. When I was 18 years old, I joined the Army National Guard so that I could pay for college because I was going to college at the Savannah School of Art and Design. And while I was in the Army National Guard, there were some unfortunate incidents because right as I enlisted is when Operation Desert Storm began and my unit was activated. And so there was a lot of things that happened, and it attributed to me eventually leaving the Army. I left the Army and went full-time in the Navy. And then after about 2.5 years in the Navy, I was finally given a medical discharge for PTSD and several different other things. But, it was just at that point in time in my life, I was amidst a lot of chaos and a lot of frustration, a lot of fears, a lot of anxieties. And so my life was turned upside down. So I was trying to find a way to get grounded and find a way that find something that I was comfortable with. So when I got out of the military, I got married really young. I was only 21 years old. She was only 18. Um, we were both kids. Neither one of us really knew what we were doing. She was fresh out of high school. Here I was with a severe emotional trauma in my life and had no real direction. We got married. I started working at a church in Memphis, Tennessee as a children's minister. Like I said, I was looking for something that was comfortable for me, something that I was familiar with, and getting back involved in the church and being able to work in that atmosphere. Before I had graduated high school and left to go into the military, my mother had done children's ministry at the churches that my dad pastored. And so I would help her in the children's department. So working in that environment was a place for me to find, I guess, a kind of a stability. And as it turns out, ministry isn't really very stable. So I think that maybe to some degree, it even added to that PTSD and anxiety and so forth. But overall, throughout the years, I continued to work in that area. And I love working with kids. I think that's one of the reasons why I enjoy doing comic books and drawing illustrations for children's books and things like that. Is I just absolutely love being able to produce these things, because kids love, it doesn't matter how crappy your art is, man. Kids love it. You draw something for them, you give it to them, they're excited. That's the coolest thing they've ever seen. And so when you're really kind of trying to hone your skill and find your place in the industry, it's good to have that little fan base of, the kids that are all excited to see your artwork and so forth. So,
And so I met David when I was really young, and David was actually my youth pastor. And back then he was doing a lot of drawing, a lot of art, and he actually created the Rugrats. He created some of the Rugrat characters. And so I remember seeing the characters before they actually went out into the series, which was really, really impressive.
I did to work. Back when I was in Savannah College of Art and Design, it was an opportunity to kind of throw some design ideas and so forth out there. Nothing is credited. It's not credited work. It was basically they wanted ideas that they could rip off.
Right.
So, a better way than to get college kids at an art college to give them some ideas. But anyhow, so I actually had some of the Rugrat cartoons that I had created published in a local newspaper in Beaufort, South Carolina, back in the early 90s. And so that's my small claim to fame right there back in the day.
That's awesome. I had no idea about that.
Right. Yeah.
That's
wouldn't.
Brand new news to me.
Yeah. You wouldn't know unless you knew David back when you were 16, like me.
Right. Yeah. So I didn't meet you until what? Gosh, like 6 years? 5 or 6 years ago, we finally met, and it was through church. Back in the day when I was still doing the whole church thing, I was playing music, and David was doing children's pastoring, and we ended up connecting on a pretty deep level, and went through a lot of garbage together. And I think we both have a little bit of that PTSD from those experiences.
We were brothers in the foxhole of the church.
And what makes it so special is that David was a mutual friend of both of ours. And, like Jesse said, he's known him for 6 years, and I've known him, since I was a kid. And David is actually the one who introduced us, so to speak. And now we're married, and David is getting married this weekend.
Yes.
I am. But let me clarify this, because I don't want to steal any thunder from Jesse. All I did was show Jesse a picture of Melissa and say, "Dude, I know this girl. Like me to introduce you." He didn't even wait for me to introduce her. He looked her up on social media and introduced himself. So all I did was make them aware of each other.
Well, who can wait when you got someone like that on the other end? I mean, good grief.
It's a really awesome story.
But I knew, I was like, well, I think that there might be a possibility there. So,
yep. And then
And there was
you actually married us too. So that you've been a huge part of
right.
our story. And so I'm excited about watching you take this next step in your story, which
Right.
believe it or not, today we're recording on Wednesday. David is actually getting married on Saturday.
Right.
So, I mean, as far as like people being busy and in the midst of things and still making time for stuff, David is definitely sacrificing some time where he probably should be doing something to get ready for the
Some
wedding.
wedding. Some wedding. I remember the week before our wedding, we were constantly having
Oh,
to
it was crazy.
our house was a disaster zone with all of our wedding decor.
we've made so many plans. Originally, we had talked about just basically eloping. Let's just the two of us go off somewhere, get married, and not have a big wedding. And then it got to the point where, well, if mom doesn't come to the wedding, she's going to get her feelings hurt. So now we need to make sure that her moms are there, our dads are there, and before we knew it, oh, well, we can invite family. Well, we can invite some of our closer friends. Well, a party. And so, yeah, it just kept
And
escalating.
now
The
it is
law,
where it is.
but it does, so we're going to have a great Christmas party on Saturday, and we're going to get married at the Christmas party.
Yes, I am so excited about it. So now going back to your story, David.
Yeah, I was going to interrupt. Her name is Pamela. I just want everybody to know.
We have a shout out to Pamela.
And Pam or Pamela, I call her Pam because we're buddies like that. Pam and David have been some of the biggest supporters of my music since I started. They've been to nearly every show. Like they rival with the top fans of my music. I'd say they even give Melissa a run for her money. But
Probably so.
Every album I have bought it. So
yeah, he doesn't even stream it for free like most people. He actually buys my records. So take a tip from David. Support your local favorite musicians.
You never know. You're going to get famous. It might come back to you one day.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, going back to your story, David, I know that you struggle with PTS and you struggle with, all of these issues. How does this affect your creative outlets?
I have adult ADHD, attention deficit disorder, and hyperactive disorder. The PTSD, the anxiety, depression, all there are so many initials that they can add behind my name when it comes to what they qualify as disorders. But the truth of the matter is, I think that as a creative, you kind of have to be a little off. You can't be just like everybody else, because if you were, then where would you pull from? And when you're creating stories and when you're creating characters, a lot of times you draw from those darker places in your life in order to get the passion and the desired drama and whatever that you're looking for in that storyline or in that character that you're creating. So I would say that those, what they qualify as disorders, don't hinder me at all. If anything, I think that they're a huge benefit to the creative process. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not celebrating the disorders because they can be very debilitating at times. But when you're not suffering from the pain of the disorder, you have an insight into a creative mindset that I don't think that what we would classify as a normal person necessarily gets or has.
Right. I mean, definitely like right-brained is more of the creative types. And I feel like if you are more right-brained, there is something that's there that, whether it's depression, whether it's, PTS, whatever ADHD, I feel like that you have to have those things in order to balance all of the creativity that you have in your brain that's going on. I'm not a scientist, but
some of the depression that I struggle with comes from a feeling of unfulfillment. Like I have so many stories inside of me, and I don't have enough time or energy or opportunity to get them out.
Right.
and they roll around inside of me, and I feel like I don't want to say like I failed somehow, but at the same time, yeah, I kind of feel like I'm failing by not accomplishing the things that I want. Even though I've accomplished a lot, I feel like there's so much more I could be doing or I could have accomplished. I have another friend of mine who is a writer. He lives in Rome, Georgia, and he struggles with severe bouts of depression. And he will write and pour his soul into his work. And the man is a wonderful, wonderful, talented writer. But then he'll go back and critique his own stuff, and then it's never good enough. And, oh, he should have did this, and, oh, he should have done that. And then he goes in these bouts of depression where he just beats himself up. And yet, I'll read his stuff and I'm like, dude, this is great. Why are you so upset about it? But we are our own worst critics.
Mm-hmm.
We are far harsher than anybody else does. Well, unless you're on social media.
And then they will criticize it for you.
And then they will make you feel like dirt. But in the general population and amongst the people that I know personally, they all are huge fans and very supportive and very uplifting, and never have a harsh thing to say about anything that I create. And I believe them. It's not just a bias. I know I'm a good artist. I'm a good writer. I'm very creative, but I do struggle with the whole I should have been better. I could have done better. I go back to Deadly Crimson, and there are times when I'll pick up the first issue and I'll look at it and I'm like, oh man, I should have done this.
Dude, I'm right there with you with, just everything that you said as far as being a creative brain. You're constantly, I won't even watch movies that I'm in. I'm like, no, I don't even want to watch myself. I don't want to hear myself. I don't want to hear my podcast. I don't.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like Melissa can tell you that I have remixed and remastered my upcoming record probably like 50 times now, and she's had to suffer through listening through every version of it over and over and over. I think I finally have it now. I believe now it is done, ready to come out. My new single is dropping any day now. Selfless little plug there. But yeah, it's one of those things where you're like, even when you finally have it as good as you think you can get it, the second it comes out, you see a million things you could have done different.
Right. And I think that's for a lot of creative types.
I have every comic book that I have ever created, the story, the art, everything involved. I probably have between 3 to 5 copies or 3 to 5 different versions of the first issue. Like I'll draw the first issue, then I'll start the second issue, then I'll decide the first issue wasn't good enough, so I'll go back and I'll redraw the first issue. So then I have to redraw the second issue, and then by the time I get to the middle end of the second issue, first issue is not good enough again. I have to go back. And finally, I had to get to a place in my life where I said, you know what? The first issue is what it is. Mm-hmm. And if I get better as I progress, then great. I'm improving as an artist. I can't continuously go back and rewrite the first issue or redraw the first issue. Sometimes you just have to accept, okay, it's not as good as the next one, but at least it's getting better, Yeah,
absolutely. And I do the same thing with my music. I listen to the records that I've put out so far because I've just recently started self-producing in my last, say, 2 things that I've put out. I would always go to a studio and have somebody else do all the hard lifting for me. But now that I'm doing it myself, I listen to these old records and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I just want to re-record everything, which on this album, I did do that with my last record I put out. But I'm not going back to my old stuff and redoing all that. You forget it. I'm just going to leave it, and people will just be like, oh, he got much better over this course of time. And that's the plight of us creatives. We constantly want it to be the best because we know that it's not just our art that people are seeing, but it's our souls. It's everything that we have inside of us to give to humanity is coming out in whatever our art is, whether it's music, acting, drawing, writing, whatever it is that you do. We are bearing our souls for people in a way that only we know the depths of what we want it to look like. And when it doesn't look just perfect, we're almost doing ourselves an injustice. And so we slave and labor over that. And it can be, like you said, depressing. It can be really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's crazy because even the stuff that we look back at and think is absolutely terrible, we've got to start over and do it again. It has fans. There are people out there who absolutely love it. You know, you talk about your music, man. I was going out when you were just starting out in some of the pubs and some of the places around Greenville and Spartanburg and just wherever you could find a gig. And I thought you were fantastic, but I follow you now and you are fantastic. You know, yeah, you've gotten better, but it didn't mean that you weren't good back then. And it's the same way with art. It's the same way with writing. It's not that a talented person isn't good until they're older. It's just that the talent increases, the skill level increases, practice makes perfect. The more you do it, the better you get at it.
Well, thank you for those kind words. I do appreciate that. All right. So now that you've reached this new plateau of skill level that is still growing every single day, what are some of your goals as a graphic designer and an artist and as a writer? Like, where are you going from here?
Well, honestly, graphic design isn't my real passion. I'm good at it, and I do enjoy doing it. And quite honestly, graphic design pays the bills. You know, the drawing the comics, the drawing the children's books, you know, they supplement, but you can't charge as much for a page in a children's book as you can for a logo. Which is unfortunate because I probably put a lot more of myself into the page of the children's book than I do the logo, you know. Um, People are willing to pay for graphic design more so than they are, you know, if you talk to writers and they're like, you know, hey, I'm looking for an artist, and you go up to them and you say, yeah, I charge $125 a page, you know, they're like, okay, well, I'm going somewhere else. I'm going to go look for that guy who's charging $25 a page. Because a lot of people, especially when they're just starting out as writers, they don't have a lot of money to invest in an artist, which is unfortunate for both the writer and the artist, because then the writer isn't going to get the quality art that they deserve for their book because they can't afford the quality art. And the quality artist is having a hard time picking up gigs because it's hard to find writers that are willing to pay what he needs to survive, you know? So the graphic design is a wonderful business. I absolutely love doing it, but my passion is definitely in doing comics and in doing the illustrations for the children's books. And I'm hoping to one day get to a place where I can afford to write and produce my own stories and publish my own work and get that out into, you know, I think that's been my goal since childhood, is to have my own comic books, you know, out there in the market. So that's where I want to be. And maybe one day we'll get some Netflix gigs and some other opportunities to, you know, be seen by those who don't read.
Yeah, that sounds great. So when you're a creative, you often have to spend a lot of time on your own, doing your creative stuff. I know when I'm writing a song, if I keep getting interrupted constantly, it's just not going to turn out. I'm going to end up abandoning it. So how has building your business and building up your clientele had an effect on your relationships as you spend this time focusing on your career?
Well, I'm going into my second marriage, so there's that. I would say that as a creative, I definitely have to have my quiet time. I have to be somewhat isolated to focus on the art that I do and the creative process. And you can't be interrupted every 5 minutes. When I think one of the reasons it took me this long to get to a place where I could really dedicate and focus on what I wanted to do was I had to get through with the whole, you know, fatherhood portion of my life. You know, my kids are now, they're grown and they're out of the house. I am going to have a couple of stepdaughters here in a couple of days, but you know, they're teenagers. They're a little more independent. and they don't need me every 5 minutes. So I do have some freedom. My fiance, she works a full-time job outside of the home, so she goes off to work, and then I'm pretty much guaranteed a good 6 to 8 hours in a day where I can just focus and dedicate on that. Um, but what I try to do, it it's really hard to turn off the creative process, especially when you're on a roll. So I'm working. Pamela gets off work. She comes home. I'm still in the process of doing. I want to finish this project. I just got to finish this page. I just got to do this thing. So I've had to teach myself to say, you know what? No, I have to clock out. It's the end of the workday. I have to let it go, and now it's time to step into the family guy role, and be the social person, and be the interactive person, and be the person that is needed. And even during my, because my studio is in my home, I do have to, I have days I have to cut grass, I have to take out the garbage, I have to cook dinner sometimes. Um, so you don't always have the freedom to just do nothing but focus on the creativity, but you make the best of every chance you get, and you try to really pour yourself into those moments.
So David, what do you do when you have those moments that strike with creativity, and it is, say, in the middle of dinner, or it is, when you're in the middle of watching a movie? What do you do in those instances?
I have to sacrifice and let the creative side go. Um, and it's, I don't think that the creativity, the brainstorm that you get sometimes, because I know exactly what you mean. You're sitting there, you're interacting with family, you're watching a movie, you're eating dinner. This idea pops in your head, and you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to write this down, or I'm going to forget it. Um, I will usually text myself. I'll grab my phone, I'll send myself a text, and I'll just put down the core elements of whatever that idea is, and then I'll set it aside, because I know that it's not the right opportunity for me to pursue it. But I know that I will have the opportunity, and as soon as I do, then I can dedicate to it. So that has come with age. Um, I would say maturity, but some people say I'm not really mature, so it definitely has come with age.
That's awesome.
I would be one of those people that would say that.
Yeah.
We love you, David.
Jesse, remember that time we stole a church baptistry and turned it into a hot tub?
I do remember that. That was a good time.
Great night. We had a great party that night.
That's awesome. Well, speaking on a little bit of a different topic, what advice would you give to those artists who are just starting out, and maybe they're a little bit afraid to get into what their passion is and go into the right side of their brain?
I think that if you're fear driven, you should just stay away from it. Because if you're afraid to take risk, if you're afraid to put yourself out there, if you're afraid of being criticized, if you're afraid of what other people think of your art or think of your creativity, then you're not meant for that. You have to be absolutely made of steel. Your spine has to be made of steel. You can't walk around with your feelings on your shoulders. You can't be temperamental. Do what you love, and don't worry about if anybody else loves it. If you do what you love and you pour yourself into it and you enjoy your life because you're doing the things that make you happy, then you're almost guaranteed to find some level of success in it. Even if that success is simply that you lived a happy life fulfilled in doing the thing that you enjoyed doing. Too many times we do things for other people. Somebody told me one time, we spend the majority of our lives making someone else rich. When we have all these talents and abilities, we could turn inward and utilize to make ourselves rich. But I definitely think that if you have a dream, throw caution to the wind. Research. I think research is the key to success. Whenever I wanted to go into comic books, I researched the industry. it wasn't enough to simply know how to draw. I needed to know everything. I needed to know the editing process. I needed to know the typesetting. I needed to know the process for marketing and advertising and the printing process. And I wanted to know what every role was in the industry so that I would understand comic books, not just the creative side, but also the business side. You have to sell yourself to whatever your dream is. I don't want to necessarily say sell your soul, but it already owns your soul. You don't have to sell your soul. If it's something that you love, it's already a part of you, and you're not going to be able to get away from it. But you can't be afraid of it. If you're afraid of it, then I don't know what advice I have for that. You know, I just say don't be afraid. Just dive in head first, and you know, hopefully there's water in the pool.
I love what you said about research, though, because that to me is what a lot of people who want to be creatives are missing. You don't know how many messages Melissa and I both get regularly of, hey, I really want to do this. How do I get involved in it? I mean, all three of us came up in a time when there was no Google.
Right.
There was no internet.
Right.
There was no cell phones. There was no anything. Like, we had to figure crap out.
Figured it out.
And people just now want the shortcut. They want the easy way in. They're like, oh, well, you are doing something there. So obviously, like, you can get me in the door. And
yeah,
you can't. Like, normally, like, people can't just say, oh, you're my friend, I'm going to get you opportunities. If I had access to do that, I'd have way more opportunities than what I currently have. And so the fact that you said you took the time and you researched every aspect of your craft, that to me is some of the best advice I've heard on this show yet, because a lot of people just want the easy button.
The easy way.
Well, we live in a drive-through and microwave-friendly society. You know, we want it quick. We want it now. You know, I own a Keurig. I know what it's like to want coffee in 2 minutes or less. You know, I want a cup of coffee. I throw a pot in the Keurig and then I have it. So the whole I want it and I want it now mentality that I think the generations coming up behind us, everything is so easy. It's at your fingertips, literally. I remember we were in school and I was taking math, and I would, you know, say to my teacher, I don't understand why I have to learn this. I can just use a calculator. And she said, well, you're not going to have a calculator with you 24/7. And now I laugh because I carry a calculator in my pocket everywhere I go.
24/7.
I carry a computer. I have access to the internet, to Google. Any question I can think to ask, all I got to do is type it in and there's an answer. However, even that seems to elude people because, yeah, like you said, you go on Facebook and people send you messages, or on Instagram or wherever, whatever your platform is, they send you messages asking, so how do I get into the industry? And my response is, by going out there and doing it, you know, by researching the industry, by learning, by finding out, you know, don't just expect people to give you all the answers. Now, I'm not opposed to answering questions, but at the same time, I'm not your resource or your fountain of knowledge for the industry. You know, you need to do your own legwork. You need to do your own homework. And I think that, like you said, research is essential to understanding. Knowledge is power. So go out and get all the knowledge you can on what it is you want to do.
That is so true. And it really is, because everyone is a little bit different in what they want to do in their craft anyway. You know, if you know, your graphic design and comic books, an artist might come to you and they want to do canvas. So yeah, it's just go out and do the research and what you want to do and what it is in your soul that fires you up.
Right, exactly. And art comes in so many forms and varieties. It's hard to quantify art as this is what art is. It doesn't work like that. Art is pretty much whatever you want it to be. And even if you say, I want to be a comic book artist, you don't want to go into the comic book world and offer them the same thing I'm offering. You have to offer yourself to the industry. You have to offer yourself to whatever it is that you're involved in. I absolutely love Todd McFarlane's art style. He does Spawn. I'm a friend of Rob Liefeld, who created Deadpool. I've interacted with a lot of big name artists and had interaction, and I love their art styles. And when I sit down to draw, I do everything I can to be different. I try to be original, and it's so hard in today's industry because the industry is saturated with phenomenal artists. I can't tell you how many times I've said I would love to go back in the time when Jack Kirby was the best artist of all, and then just be like, blow him out the water because I'm so much better than Jack Kirby. but I have to compare myself to people like Jim Lee, and it's nearly impossible. I can't draw like those guys, so I have to draw like me. And when I draw my style, when I do my thing and I bring that to the table, I might not have the same fans that they have, but I will have my own fan base. And then there will be a group of people who are like, man, I wish I could draw like G. David Cooper, you know? And I say, don't wish that. Do your own thing.
Yeah, one of the best pieces of advice I heard a while back is you are not marketing yourself to everyone, because 100% of people aren't going to like what you do. You need to find your tribe. You need to find the people that connect with what you do and market towards them and do your thing. Like you're saying, like, be yourself. You know, I could write songs like Justin Timberlake, but that's not who I am as an artist. I have to be true to me. And because if I did, people would be like, oh, well, he just sounds just like Justin Timberlake. And I don't, I was recently in a Bon Jovi tribute band, which was a lot of fun, had a great time. Love the guys that are in it. We're all, still great friends and no bad blood there at all. But I started evaluating, what is my purpose in this? Because right now I'm playing other people's music and building something that isn't myself. And so long term, like you were saying, it was that fast food mentality. I was getting that high of being on stage in front of thousands of people and traveling all over the country playing these shows. But at the end of the day, I wasn't being true to myself. And so I had to step down from that to pursue my own endeavors. And I couldn't be happier now. Like I'm getting ready to put out this record, and I feel so accomplished with it and so at peace with it because it's me. Like every ounce of effort that I've put into that is going to come through, and people are going to hear me, not somebody else's work or somebody else's idea. Like I'm sure you could pick up a comic book and draw, copy the thing from start to finish. I'm sure you could. But what would that be for you? That would just be somebody else's comic that you drew the same way. It wouldn't be your heart.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I never wanted to work for Marvel or DC or any of the other existing comic book companies that are out there. I never wanted to draw Batman. I didn't want to draw Superman. And I love Batman and Superman. They're two of my favorite characters. But I never wanted to do that. And I don't even know that I would qualify to work for them. I'm just saying that it wasn't an issue of I applied for a job there and got turned down. I never bothered to apply there because I only wanted to work on things that were unique. Deadly Crimson was an opportunity to work on a unique storyline. When I work on my own books, I have a book called The Dead of Night that I work on. I have a story called Cannonball's Run that I work on. I have a story called right now, a buddy of mine and I are writing a story called Apex Predator, and I'm going to hopefully turn that into a graphic novel soon. But these are unique, and they speak of me. It's my characters, my designs, and even though Melissa created Deadly Crimson, I helped to design the way the character would look on paper. And so I put some of me in that as well. And so when I can't make Batman mine, I can't make Superman mine, I can't make Spider-Man mine. And I don't want to just be, like you don't want to be a cover artist for bands. You want to write your own music and be Jesse Biondi. I'm the same way when it comes to comic books. I don't want to be just another guy who drew, 10 issues of Spider-Man and moved on to the Justice League. I want to be that guy who created and drew and launched, his own stuff. And even if the majority of the world doesn't like it, all I got to do is win, like 0.5% of the industry, and I'm self-sustaining.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's what we all want to do, right? Being a creative type, you want yourself out there, and that's what we're here for.
Yep.
So, David, what success stories do you have recently that you would like to share and celebrate with us?
Oh, well, I've done a lot of children's books illustrations over the last several years. I've had a few opportunities to do comics for independent writers, and that's been great. My personal success really has hinged around being able to do what I do on a full-time basis and make a living on it. I think the first goal that I had in mind whenever I left ministry and went full-time into art was to be self-supporting. I think any creative, we want to be able to write our own paychecks, to be able to clock in and clock out on our timetable. There are some mornings I wake up at 4:00 in the morning and I'm wide awake because my brain's working. And so I start working, and I might work all day. And there are some days I wake up and I think, you know what? I don't feel like doing anything today. So I don't, and that's a freedom that I have that, man, I definitely celebrate that. I totally love not having to ask time off to go do something. I know my bride, she had to get time off for our wedding and the honeymoon. And I pick at her and I'm like, I don't know if my boss is going to give me any time off. He's kind of a bastard. So he's a slave driver.
That is an amazing success in itself, that you're building your brand, you're building yourself, and you're able to do what you love on a daily.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm seeing more and more opportunities as I get better at my craft. It takes less time to do it, and I don't know if that makes any sense. It's like, well, the whole practice makes perfect mentality. Whereas it used to take me an entire day and a half, 2 days to draw a comic book page, I can probably knock out a comic book page in like 4 to 6 hours now, and still maintain the quality. So if I'm doing it, when I started drawing children's books, it took me a couple of days to do a page for a children's book. Now I do roughly 2 pages a day on children's books, and the more experience I have in doing it, the easier it becomes, the quicker it is, the more I can accomplish. Therefore, the more free time I have. So, if I'm working on, right now I've got 3 children's books that I'm working on for 3 different authors who are paying me to illustrate for them. I'm juggling these books, I'm trying to maintain a specific time frame, and yet I have enough free time to work on my own children's book, which I hope to be sending out to print soon. I wrote a children's book called An Elephant in the Room, and it's cute. It's only about 20 pages, but it's just this little story about this baby who's sitting in the living room floor, and every time somebody walks through the room, they smell a really bad smell. And they're all reacting to this terrible smell, and they're running from the room. They're running from the elephant in the room. Nobody wants to address the elephant in the room. And so you get the sister and the brother, and then the twins come through, and everybody, and finally the mom and dad come through the room. Everybody leaves, and the baby's sitting there on the floor by himself playing with his blocks. And on the next to the last page, he kind of sniffs a couple of times. And then the last page, he looks up, and there's literally an elephant sitting beside him on the floor. And he looks at the elephant and says, "You stink."
That's so cute.
little story where everybody thinks, well, obviously the baby has a dirty diaper. Well, no, there's an elephant in the room, and the elephant stinks. So it's just a silly story, but I wrote it, I illustrated it, I colored it. I'm doing a little local marketing with it, and I'm getting ready to. I'm gonna start out by sending it. Of course, Amazon's real easy for anybody who's a creative who wants to publish something. Amazon's quick and easy. They accept pretty much everybody's stuff. You know, going from there, another opportunity is with the company Books a Million. They're really good for helping out independents and self-publishers, and all you got to do is get some momentum. Once you get some momentum, once you get you a fan base, then the more impressive publishing companies will start paying you some attention. So
Would
we'll
you
get there.
would you mind sending us a sample that we can help promote this for you and maybe give people a little
Oh,
teaser?
absolutely. I'll send you a PDF of it.
Or just a page. We can buy the book. We can definitely support you and get the book once it's finished.
Absolutely.
But we would love to give our listeners a little sneak peek of it.
Yeah. I'm doing a thing. It's still kind of in the works, and it's kind of on the down low, but we're in the process, me and some other creatives that I'm working with, of building a site online that's going to be kind of like a Netflix kind of site, but for children's books as well. Maybe not Netflix. Well, children's books that read themselves
On demand.
on demand. Yes. And so it'll be subscription based, and every children's book author who would like to submit their book can have it submitted to us. We will turn it into a slideshow type presentation. We have readers who are dramatic readers, some actually voice actors who are working with us to read the books. And once this gets launched, we're trying to get about 60 books on the platform before we launch. And once we get those books taken care of, and we've got a good start, but we're not at 60 yet, but we're getting there. We're going to launch that and try to make this app-based subscription. Because think about it, kids on long trips, kids sitting waiting for whatever, they can pull this app up. They get the educational benefits of reading because it'll have the words on the screen, the little bouncy ball that follows the words and things like that. Plus, it's a subscription that parents get access to all these children's books for a one-time, monthly, very low fee. And their kids have access to this. And like I said, so it's educational, it's entertaining, and it'll create some opportunities for authors to be seen, especially those who are still looking to get published.
Well, I feel like that's another great success. Why didn't you lead off with that?
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's great.
It's not completed yet. It's an in the works thing. But we hope to launch early spring. So.
Well, something about this podcast is we love celebrating the small successes and the pathway that it takes to get to success. So we celebrate that already, and the path that it's going to take and the success that it's going to have ahead of time.
Well, thank you so much. We're looking forward to getting it off the ground, and maybe in a few months I can come back on and give you more information about it and give you the address and go from there.
Yes, we would love that. And speaking of that, David, why don't you let our listeners know where they can find you, your Insta, your social, what platforms you're on, and your email?
I have two websites that are available right now. One is sequentialsamurai.com. There you can go on, you can read some of my books. I try to update the pages on Sequential Samurai about once every week, and some of them are once every other week. But you can read some of the comic books that I've created there. The other one is starshine.design, and that is my graphic design and web development website. You can go there, see my graphic designs, see some of the samples of the web designs that I've done, and communicate with me if you're looking for a website or any graphic design work.
Is that the full address, starshine.design, or is it starshine.design.com?
Starshine.design.
Ah.
That was the website.
Nice.
Yeah. That one cost me something, but it was worth it because it's just my name. That's the website, starshine.design. So I have those two websites, and the gdavidcooper.com is in the process of coming up, and it will have access to all pretty much everything that is me. And I'll have that up looking at a January launch for that. So that'll be an LLC, and it'll be the umbrella for my other sub companies.
Awesome.
Well, that's all super exciting.
I didn't tell you about social medias. I'm on Facebook. You can find me at G. David Cooper on Facebook, G. David Cooper on Instagram. I think Instagram, I'm official G. David Cooper. So, nobody can be official but me. And I tried doing Twitter, but I just got tired of Twitter. So I'm not a Twitter person. But definitely you'll find me on Instagram and old school Facebook, and definitely on the web. So
excellent. Well, David, you know that you're one of our favorite people, and it's been such a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Yes, you are awesome. You've given so many great nuggets to our listeners, and hopefully they have gone away feeling so inspired and so motivated to fulfill their own projects.
Well, cool. I'm glad that y'all gave me the opportunity to be here. I love you both. And I look forward to seeing you guys on Saturday.
Yes.
Absolutely. So we will talk to you then. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye. Wow. So I am inspired. How about you, Jesse?
Absolutely. I really love a lot of the stuff he said, especially, a lot of the stuff that we have already covered. I won't go back into it,
Right.
But there's so many things as creatives that we deal with that is just across the board. And he hit on a lot of that, and it was just really excellent.
Yes, I am so thrilled that he joined us today. And we are so excited to all of our listeners, and we appreciate you tuning in every single week. And until next time, this is a Creative Global Entertainment production. Did you get motivated? Do you feel inspired?
Don't worry about keeping up with the Joneses anymore, and don't forget to celebrate your successes every single day. Thank you for taking this journey with us.
Follow us at Facebook and Instagram at Reimagine Success Pod. Email us at reimaginesuccesspod@gmail.com and let us know what your successes are.
New episodes every Thursday at reimaginesuccesspod.com.
So let's change our mindsets and reimagine success.